Hello and welcome back to another episode of Transport Fever 2. We're here in Brookshire County on our highway leaving Salt Lake City, and in this video we're going to focus more on highways by connecting Portland to Allentown by highway, and we might even get out to Pittsburgh depending on how easily we can end up making that connection. And so the goal with this is to extend this highway where we left it off here in Portland, extending it out into this direction. I'm not sure exactly which way we'll end up going, but connecting up to Allentown, probably by a bridge that comes across here, and then we end up making a connection somewhere in this area. And then, depending on how that goes, we might even think about splitting that connection, and first of all making a connection towards this food processing plant, so we can then start providing Allentown with a few more resources that would make it arguably easier to deliver food by trucks to Allentown, since we would then have a highway connection. And then we can maybe not fully connect it to Pittsburgh, but we can at least start to extend our highway extensions just outside of Pittsburgh. I'm still not fully sure how I want to bring it through the city, but at least if we can figure out where these connection points will start to encroach on the city, we can maybe then find a route that way. And so really the goal of all of this is to, first of all, connect Allentown to our larger transportation network, but more importantly, clean up this mess that we sort of created in our last video with these boats. We're currently dumping off machines at this port, just because it's really the only thing that's available to us right now, as we don't have any existing road connections to this food processing plant, because ideally I think we'd want to be dropping off at this port and then transport by truck, since this would be a nice sort of middle ground between Pittsburgh and Allentown. Any resources we have on the return trip on this boat line can come, drop those resources off here, and then we can split those between Pittsburgh and Allentown depending on whatever the current needs are. It'll also just make this boat line a little bit more efficient so that it doesn't have to completely go past where it would normally need to go and then drop off here and then travel empty all the way back. It'd still travel empty if we dropped off at this port, but the distance would be a good bit shorter, and ideally if we dropped off here, we have more destinations, so we can get more demand out of these boats in the long run. But overall, I think that's going to be the goal with this video. Again, with this highway here, I'm not sure. I don't think we want to go straight out and sort of over all of this, because then we end up with a situation where we need to do a sharp decline before bridging over to Allentown. So what I'm thinking is maybe we extend this straight through, and then we start to curve it out towards the river, and we follow along this hillside here. So we'll keep some elevation here as we follow along this hillside. But then coming around this way, we're able to keep a lower elevation with a lot less slope as we begin encountering Allentown. And then that'll leave us with a relatively flat area here where we can then create an interchange, which is then where our highway would come through, follow the river, and head out towards Pittsburgh. And so I think we'll do that. Another benefit of doing it this way, where we sort of curve out towards the river, is we can get another connection to Portland on this side of the city, so that might help even more draw demand between Portland and Allentown. But again, that'll be a little bit farther in the future, since it'll still take a while for Portland to expand that far, but it doesn't hurt to be prepared for those types of connections. Alright, and so with that, let's start building out our highway. Alright, and here we are after our highway was built. So we now have this connection between Portland and Allentown. We haven't connected anything up quite yet besides this little connection here. And so I think quickly let's make a connection to this road, which we can just easily do with some of these on-ramps. Although that might be a little bit harder, so we might have to come out a bit and then connect. Alright, so now we have our connection here. It's not perfect, but it does connect, other than this one piece here. So let's get that connected. So now we should start seeing people using our highway. I'm not sure if there's really any demand at the moment, so we don't see anyone using it quite yet, although I'm sure as things update, it'll continue going. But you can see this is sort of how we're going to come through the city. So we're going to bridge over the highway and have this sort of little sunken bit in. We will come back eventually and use retaining walls to make this look nicer, maybe hide some of the other things that are a little less desirable, and maybe try to clean it up and straighten things out more later on. But for now, I think this works okay how it is. So we'll just go and leave it like that. And then moving on across the river, we have our larger interchange. So this will connect to this side of Allentown if it ever extends across the river. I'm not sure if it will, but it wouldn't hurt to have this connection, especially since the other side of this connection is what's going to end up taking us out over to this food processing plant and then eventually Pittsburgh. I think this way is also going to take us to Pittsburgh, but it'll probably come around and come into the other side, or maybe it'll come up and it'll come across this way. But I think either way, these are both going to lead to Pittsburgh, or at least by Pittsburgh. But this is the connection that I want to focus on mainly in this video, getting this extended over by this food processing plant. But moving on through the rest of our highway, we have some tunnels through here just because the terrain is a bit rougher. And then we pop out over here where we then follow along the mountainside. So we have a bridge. I tried playing around with some retaining wall bridges, but for some reason they were either facing the wrong way, which was a little bit frustrating, and I'm not sure how we would fix that without flipping traffic, which would just be a mess at this point. But we follow along the hillside here. We made it work just by bumping out the land a bit. And then we come through this huge sort of flat section of land right before we come over the hill and then come down where we connect into Portland. So I think this is a pretty fun connection. Hopefully this little bit around this mountain doesn't dissuade too many people from using this connection, but I do really like how it turned out, and so I hope it ends up working for us farther in the future. And then this area here is probably where I was talking about, where once Portland extends out this way more, we could probably have another connection out this way, and so that would probably end up being somewhere here. But anyway, let's continue on with this direction. And I don't think we're going to extend it to Pittsburgh. I do think we will bring it up along this way, and then we'll connect it to these roads in here, and that'll be our connection. Technically, it'll still connect to Pittsburgh via this road, but I don't think we want to bring it any or too much closer until we have a more concrete plan on how we want to go about connecting it. So first, I think we're going to have to get rid of this industry because that will be in the way. And then for the most part, it'll pretty much just be extending this. We'll keep it flat and we'll try to keep the turns to a minimum, but we'll come around this curve and we'll bring the other side with us, and then we'll go straight for a good bit. It looks like we might need to turn again, so we'll come straight to about here. Have a bit of a sharper curve, maybe something more along the lines of this, and we'll extend this line. And so we can take a look here. This actually almost perfectly aligns us up with where we wanted to connect our road to, but I think we're going to start from this end now and then work over. So we'll come out a few feet from this road just to give it some space. We can continue building this out. And I suppose we'll want to get up to whatever elevation that we'll be crossing the river at. So that'll probably be about this high if we can get this to turn into a bridge. So now we can have this as a bridge. Continue bringing that over. Yeah, I'm not sure why that went back down, but I think we can just force it to be a bridge regardless with this zero height bridge mod. So we'll just force that to be a bridge. And hopefully that doesn't... Okay, it looks like the pillars do pop in, but they come in late. But now we can delete these. We can come back and snap to this side. Bring that over. And then we should just be able to come straight across. This is a long bridge for what it is, but it is straight in terms of our connection here. So I think we'll just have to keep it. And now that we're on this side of the river, we can turn off this zero height bridge. We can lower the highway back down to ground level, and then we can pretty much just extend this straight until we pretty much meet up with this curve. Alright, so with that connection made, and we're coming across this way, we can continue to come straight across. And again, it looks like we're running into more issues. It looks like we're just barely not high enough. But realistically, I don't see why this wouldn't work. So we're going to continue to force the bridge and build anyway. I'm not sure why that didn't work. We'll try that again. I think building with collision as well as the zero height bridge is messing things up a bit. So I do think we might have to go up just the tiniest bit until we can force this bridge to happen. So right about there, we'll bring this side up a little bit, and then that's when these can just come straight across, like so. Alright, so let's get our highways going in the correct direction. So we need to flip this side, and just extend that back until we no longer get the wrong way signal. Alright, now we should be pretty well connected there. Now the last thing we need to do is build our connection here, which shouldn't be too hard. I think first we will grab our country road, and we'll bring this up until about here-ish. And then we'll have to find our on-ramp. Unfortunately, it looks like we can't get this to fit in here. We might have to extend this a bit farther than we initially wanted to. Alright, so here's this connection now. I really don't like how messy this gets with things like on-ramps connecting to a country road or any of this, but it's really probably just the best we're going to get. So we just kind of have to live with it. But now we can start upgrading some of these roads, as we're going to start seeing a lot more trucks and other things coming through here. So we'll upgrade the main roads through here. We'll leave some of these dirt still until we can get come through and upgrade the detailing. But here, this road can get smoothed out, and we'll just pretty much redo this road all the way back until we get to Pittsburgh. So with this connection here, that should be good. And now I think we're okay. We should have everything connected now. We just need to come through and maybe smooth this portion out a tiny bit. So we'll smooth out our little slope here. There we go. And I think we're good. So let's take a look at our destinations layer. Still no one is using this. I suppose that might be expected until we get some more connections or demand. But we'll be using it for our own resources at least. So it's not a total loss if this doesn't get used at all. We will be using it now to bring machines and food into the city of Allentown. And so now we can start making some of these switches, which it does unfortunately undo a good bit of what we did in the last video, but it is much needed. So instead of coming to Allentown, it's going to come to this port here. And then this is where it's going to unload, I believe it was machines that we're bringing. Or no, it's fuel that we're bringing. Maybe it's fuel and machines. I'm not sure what was happening over here. Well, I guess we can check our line. So let's manage the line. What's it picking up? It's picking up fuel. So yeah, unload fuel here at Pittsburgh, and then we should be good then. Alright, so now all of our boats are drastically changing course. Let's make sure that we are now starting to deliver things in the right places. First of all, I think we're going to need to add another dock here, just due to the amount of boats that will be coming. So let's get a dock in here quick. So now we'll have these boats dropping off here. We're not currently using this truck stop for anything. I think eventually we'll use that for, well, I guess we could use that for food to Allentown. But right now let's focus on fuel first. We'll get fuel going before anything else. And so now we need to switch up our truck line, which Allentown needs about 161 fuel. We'll have to grab this line, manage it, so it's no longer picking up fuel from here. It is now picking up fuel from this station. And we'll set that appropriately. And then that brings us down to a rate of 41. Let's see if maybe we have trucks that are better for long distance, although I believe we're already working with some of our best trucks. So I think we'll just need to duplicate this a few times until we get up to 161, and then we'll be good to leave these trucks alone. And so eventually, I don't think we want to just have a direct delivery into Allentown. Once we unlock larger trucks that can maybe carry multiple resources, I think maybe out here we'll have sort of a drop-off point, and then we'll have smaller trucks that do less emissions and will be more efficient at getting to their routes in a city. We can then split those lines off from that drop-off point to get to wherever they need to, and then that'll just help out a lot more later on down the line. But for now, this solution should work, and again, it's going to be a lot of waiting again until our boats figure out what they're doing. It looks like they're all heading back to this port again like they did in the last video, so we're just going to have to fast forward through this and let them go out and do their thing. And so we certainly have a mess on our hands with these boats yet again. We can actually probably sell a few since we no longer need such a large line rate, since we shortened the line a little bit. And once things really start going, we probably don't need this many boats to begin with. So that'll help out a little bit, but you can already see this line is heading straight for our machines factory here, which still seems to be bottlenecked by our steel production. So these boats are leaving the port full, which is what we want, or at least this one was leaving full. It looks like a lot of these industries are maxed out now, and if we take a look at some of these lines, unfortunately they're not making us money. Our iron line is pretty close, so I think we are almost there in terms of technological advances, but we're moving iron in at a rate of 1,800. Coal is getting moved in at a slightly higher rate, and coal is also just barely losing us money. This line wasn't ever earning us money to begin with, and it's still not even carrying a full load of resources, despite us having this full free industry. But I suppose it doesn't hurt to have the capacity for more if we ever do need it. But yeah, these coal lines just aren't leaving as full as they could be. But I think eventually we'll look into expanding this a bit more. But for now, we do have the resources. We just need to let things sort of settle out for a bit. Alright, and so while we wait for things to even out and we wait for fuel to start coming back in through our boat line and everything, let's just go through the map and try to pick up some quick things that we can improve upon, such as our train stations, because our Pittsburgh one is starting to push its limits again, as we can see here. So I think we might need to start looking into what we can clean up here and in other areas of the map. So let's first start by taking a look at our lines as a whole. Let's see if anything is losing us a ton of money, which, of course, our boat line is currently our biggest loser, but that's because that's just a whole mess right now. Next up is our coal line. Now, it is losing us 3 to 4 million. I suppose we could save a tiny bit of money by just shaving off one car. I mean, that'll purely only save us money in terms of running costs, but that is one fix that we can use. It'll also help these trains get up to speed just slightly faster, which will also help, but unfortunately, I guess if our iron line and our coal line are our worst lines on the map, that's not such a bad thing considering the services they're providing for the rest of the map. But taking a look at some of our other ones, of course our usual suspects are our fuel line for Allentown, but that's because it's not really running. We have our Pittsburgh machines line, and this I think a lot of our machines just aren't going into Pittsburgh anymore. Yeah, we can see only 38. Now I wonder if that might be due to the fact that we're drawing a lot of this away from Pittsburgh now. So you can see our main consumer is Roswell. And then Pittsburgh is all the way down at the bottom here. So I think we definitely need to get more machines coming out of this area. But again, we just talked about the issues we're having with all these steel mills here. So there is ways we can improve it, but it's not going to be easy. We'll probably just have to end up dropping down another industry, but then we'll have to make sure that we're providing everything for it, which most likely will involve us waiting for better trucks, since these are both operating at a rate of 800, and getting any more trucks on this road will probably start to lead to some traffic. And so I think we'll just leave that for now. If we take a look at our steel boat, we do cap ourselves at 640 for our rate coming into the machines factory, which might have a little bit to do with why we're not seeing so much. Our plank ships are also capped at about 640. This line does just barely make us money, so it wouldn't be too hard to just bump that up, especially since I think we've prepped ourselves for this sawmill to run at max rate. Or maybe not, I'm not sure. We have two lines running at close to 800. I forgot that's what we did here. Yeah, so this planks line, we can bump this up to get this rate up to closer to 800. And then we'll do the same for the steel line, even though we're not really ready for it. But I think what we'll do is we'll just throw down another steel industry, and that might just be able to provide for it until we're able to reliably bring in more steel and coal, or iron and coal. And so we'll just build that right here. I'm not sure. We might have placed that down the wrong way. We might have to delete that and rotate. So yeah, we had that getting placed the wrong way, but we can instead get that placed right here. And although it's not going to work immediately, we should start to see at least it helping relieve the pressure on some of these other industries. So if we do ever at some point max these out, we are prepared to do a little bit more. And so I think with that, we'll leave this steel area alone. We can take a look at some of our other lines. So some of these other ones are popping up just because they might take a while, but our Allentown to Pittsburgh train line, it's just barely earning us money, but I think part of the issue is our trains leaving Pittsburgh. If we grab this one, they're not leaving with a full load of people because this station is getting overloaded really easily. So we still have issues with our Pittsburgh, Roswell, and Lincoln line, as well as our Pittsburgh to Tacoma line. So we might have to throw on another train for each of those. Let's first check our Pittsburgh, Roswell, Lincoln line. Let's see if that demand is the same in Roswell. So yeah, Roswell has a ton of people waiting for that line as well. And then Lincoln, although not as much, I think we could definitely still get another train running on this line. So we'll get, I believe that would be 7 now on this line. We're not going to go too crazy because I don't want to overdo it and then all of our passenger stations just sort of run dry. But then our other line, Pittsburgh to Tacoma, if we come over to Tacoma, so over here in Tacoma, that line isn't really in demand, but that's probably because our Houston to Tacoma and our Lincoln to Tacoma line is pretty full. So this is just what we're going to have to do for a bit. We're going to have to chase down these lines, see which ones are in demand and which ones we can upgrade. So for instance, our Houston-Tacoma line can get another train going. That'll help relieve pressure here in Tacoma, which means we could probably then get another train going from Pittsburgh to Tacoma, and that'll help out with that. Now, next would be our Lincoln to Tacoma line. And coming in here, this is definitely one of our more in-demand lines between those two cities. So we'll go ahead and duplicate that. These trains should start to get replaced soon, but we'll see what happens with our current lines, as we don't want to overload our tracks, especially in this area, as that's where a lot of our new trains are probably going to be going. And I'm debating on if we put another signal somewhere in here, but I think we just need to let these trains get out and do their thing. And so it'll take a bit for us to see any changes or improvements there, but all of that pretty much to say that hopefully that'll start to open up our Allentown to Pittsburgh line, as I do think this line can make us money. It's just a matter of the train running full in both directions, and especially with this being the only way out of Allentown, there's very much a lot of pressure from Allentown to get people out of the city on this train. And then while we're in Allentown, we have this bus line, which is pretty much what's used to get everyone to the train station. So let's see if there's a better bus than what we're currently running. So we do have these twin coaches, which they can carry the most, but they do cost double the amount. And so I'm not sure if we want to make that jump. Although I suppose for capacity's sake, let's try it out and see what happens. But I'm not sure if that'll be exactly what we want to do with this line. Maybe this ends up being a tram line or something else higher capacity, since this is really what connects all of our vertical lines through Allentown to our train station. And then taking a look at a few more of our other lines, nothing really jumps out too much. It's either just lines that, again, have a long trip, so this number isn't entirely accurate, or they're just not losing us enough money for it to really be significant. But on the flip side, our best line is yet again our planks and tools line, especially the one that we just upgraded in the last video. We're seeing a lot of cargo trains, a lot of our passenger trains that are sort of our long distance trains. Those are getting us a lot of money. And so I think we're in a pretty good position. If we take a look at our finances, we are still consistently earning money. If we look at our chart here, although this isn't quite accurate to 50 years, it looks like it really only covers maybe this video and the last video, but we're continuing to go up in both income and expenses, but that could be due to really anything. Our balances over time, that continues to go up. And then our tracks here, we can just take a look at all of our other statistics. But you can see we've been starting to cool off on building a bunch of tracks, since there's not really many more connections to make by train. Our cities continuing to grow. Looks like they're sort of at their, well, they sort of reached their peak of growth in this period, which is probably when we came through and expanded a lot of them. But they're still continuing to increase pretty quickly. And then taking a look at our headquarters and all of these statistics, we can see basically all of our lifetime stats. We have over 2,000 road vehicles, which is quite a lot. And then we can see down here all the way at the bottom the amount of total cargo that we've transported and all of our lines, different cargo types, and whatnot. Alright, and so I think with that, let's take a look and see if our highway is doing anything. And it looks like we're getting some private transportation here between Pittsburgh and Allentown. So this highway is actually getting used. So that's exciting to see. Unfortunately, no one between Allentown and Portland, but I'm sure if we ever get a connection from this road up to here, I'm sure we'll start to see people using that. I think it's just a bit out of the way for people, especially in this residential area, to come back up and then back over on the highway. But I think as time goes on, as cars get faster, people's willingness to drive long distance slowly goes up. So we should see this increase over time, much similar to how our highway segment between Salt Lake City and Houston, that took time to grow. But if we come over here now, we can see it's getting a good amount of use. Even Salt Lake City to Portland, we're starting to see a few people using it. So this will only continue to get better as time goes on. Our connections in Salt Lake City, all of them are getting used by private transportation now, which is exciting to see. You can see this almost looks busy at some points. We have a fair amount of cars using it. So these are all pretty exciting things. Let's see if our Tacoma extension is getting used. And it does look like a couple of people, 3 people coming into Houston, 1 going out to Tacoma. We even have someone bypassing it, and let's see where they're getting off. It looks like they're actually maybe going all the way out to Salt Lake City, which is a pretty far distance for a person to travel via private transportation, but as long as it's good to see that they're using that, because it does mean that they're willing to travel those distances in some cases. And so with that, let's take a look at what we've done so far in this video, and then when we come back, we'll talk about some next steps and future projects. Alright, so now that we're back here by Allentown, obviously I think one of our best next steps is, at least for this highway, getting it connected to Pittsburgh in maybe a bit more of a closer location than having to take this road down and around, since it seems like the demand might be there if we take a look here. So if we can get this highway to be a little bit closer, maybe it connects somewhere here, but I don't think we're going to plan to go through Pittsburgh for at least a little bit. I think we have some other projects we want to work on before then. And then obviously with this portion of the highway, as we mentioned before, bringing that up and either around and into Pittsburgh, or maybe it can just completely bypass Pittsburgh and this line goes all the way up and over to Roswell here. But that's quite a long distance. I'm not sure if that's exactly what we want to do with our highway just yet. And then sticking around in the same area, we do have fuel getting dropped off here. Allentown does need food, so I think also getting food trucks coming from this area, we'll start to really see our private trucks using our highway then to deliver these resources. Now, Allentown doesn't need a lot of fuel or food, so it's not too terrible. We shouldn't have too many trucks coming into the city, I guess I should say. One thing that caught my eye, though, is it says we don't have any fuel delivered yet to Allentown. Now, that could just be our trucks haven't delivered any yet. I suppose they could still be on the road with the first few loads of fuel, as it looks like we still have none. Yeah, it looks like starting with this truck here, we'll start having fuel reaching Allentown, and that'll start to bring our growth back up. And then I think, as I mentioned before, as we were looking at our lines, I think some of our trains are going to need upgraded. I think we want to start to get on top of our passenger transport again. We've sort of let that loose for a bit. A lot of places in some cities aren't covered by bus stops. A lot of our trains are sort of not able to keep up with the demand. So I think that's another major thing that we want to look at, especially in our larger cities such as Tacoma here. And then, although our trains are doing okay in Houston, we're still pushing our limits here. A lot of our bus stops are still overloaded, so that's another thing we'll have to take a look at. But yeah, I think overall passenger transport across the map is something that will need to be addressed, and maybe that means we can start getting buses going on our highways. I'm not sure what our fastest bus is. If we come in here and we take a look at our road depot, it looks like our fastest bus is just 31 miles an hour, which I think if we take a look at our some of these private cars, and we just hop in here, we can see how fast they're going. So this one is going 35 miles an hour, or even faster actually. So yeah, these people aren't even going to choose to use buses at the moment, even if they could, just because their own cars are faster than our buses. So that's just going to have to be something that waits. And so then another thing that we might start looking at once we're done upgrading our passenger transport is getting more resources to cities. I think we're getting to the point where there's only a few cities that aren't getting every resource. Our worst cases are Tacoma here, where that still needs 4 resources, and Lincoln, which also needs 4 resources. I think really starting to ramp up production on fuel, which is currently what's one of our least made resources on the map at the moment, or at least our least connected. I think only about half our cities have fuel, while almost all the other cities on the map have at least any of the other resources. And then I think that will set us up in a pretty good position once we get some of those things done. And so let's see how our boat line is doing before we end the video off here. It looks like things are starting to move around again. Our boats have started to unbunch. I think a huge portion of that is now queuing up at Salt Lake City. So hopefully they'll be getting a lot of fuel to leave. Of course, the expectation is that they're not leaving with a full load of fuel, but as long as they have a little bit on each boat, they'll be making us some money. Of course, this isn't going to be fully reflective of the line just yet, but if we take a look at our finances, you can see when we made our big shift here, the first time we did it, it took a while for these numbers to start to ramp up. Here, you can see the same thing. It's going to take a while for these numbers to ramp up and be consistent again, but the goal is eventually we'll be back there. Maybe we can bring some more resources on the return trip, even if they're ones that we already have up here, such as construction materials and other things. Especially since this construction materials plant, we're not really pushing to its limit or maxing out. I think this area could just use some attention in general. Upgrading roads, I mean, there's no need for this to still be a dirt road. I think especially because our trucks are pretty limited on this road, but that's something we'll worry about maybe in the next video. But there's a lot of potential things that we can do here in the future. And so with that, that's going to be all for this video. So if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions or feedback, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.